Welcome to this edition of the SwimSwam Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, joined today by Yin Lee from Evanston, Illinois. Yin, we had a big weekend of swimming. There was a lot of meets,
Yeah,
some surprises. We're going to start with the biggest meet of the weekend for the United States, which was Virginia versus Texas. Virginia surprisingly walked away with 4 wins. The men and women swept Texas on both days. Number one takeaway from this meet, where we saw 1,200 plus fans attend on Friday night. We saw super finals. Your number one takeaway, Yin.
I think my number one takeaway from this meet is if you try hard to do something unconventional, you will get the headlines. Because people complain all the time in our comments about how, oh, there's too many UVA articles, blah, 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 blah. But it's like the reason why UVA is always doing stuff is the reason why UVA is always getting headlines is because they're always doing stuff that's noteworthy. If your program is doing something that's unconventional and out of the norm and something good for college swimming, then we will write about it. And that's what they did at this meet. And from a swimming perspective, this meet sort of played out the way I thought it would play out, at least on the women's side. Both teams did look pretty good. Even if Texas didn't win and the result was pretty lopsided, they still had a few fast swims. I'm a little surprised at how lopsided the meet in um was in Virginia's favor on the men's side because I think on paper Texas still has the better team and I think they have more potential NCAA scorers. So it will be interesting to see how that carries over into the postseason. But the UVA men definitely showed up. On the women's side, Gretchen Walsh, great as usual. Jasmine Nosentini, I brought her up in a tweet because she was one of the swimmers that stood out the most to me. She went 47.8 in the 100 free, 21.8 in the 50, and then 58.1 in the 100, and beating Anna Lent by um zero point 0.6 of a second, which I think that's a big statement swim for her.
Especially because
Unsuited,
they were
beating her
like
best time.
tied at the 75, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I didn't watch the race video, but that was a really big statement swim for me. And personally, I think her impact on Virginia was a little undervalued when she transferred, but I knew from the moment that she was transferring here that Virginia would be just fine without Kate Douglas or Lexi Como. And obviously she's not Kate Douglas is one of the best NCAA swimmers of all time. There's no one that's gonna replicate her, but Nosa Pitini being such a versatile sprinter who can definitely make an impact individually is definitely going to help this team and fill in that hole. Those were my
Yeah.
main swimming takeaways.
And certainly Nosentini's transfer is like exceedingly timely with them not having Claire Curzan this season, losing, like you said, Lexi and Kate, among others from last season. Like she's like just slots in perfectly to where the Texas women, I think, are coming and they're going to be really good at NC2As. But I think she kind of like seals the deal for in my eyes right now is like, yeah, I think they're going to four-peat. But and she's lived up to her billing so far this season, as you said. I
I'd
definitely
say
agree.
she's exceeded her billing, but yeah, for sure.
Hashtag DeSorbo effect.
Hashtag disposable effect.
Yeah, I mean it was a really fun meet. My number one takeaway is that we gotta we gotta find a way to live stream these events, right? And I'm not
Mm.
necessarily saying SwimSwam has to. It would be great if we could, but I think if we're gonna start having meets like this that are fun, that are fan friendly, and that get a lot of headlines and hype, people want to see them, right? People want to be able to watch them. And shout out to Tyler Fenwick, who Instagram lived the entire meet from his phone. And then UVA always posts their race videos on their YouTube channel, which is awesome. A lot of schools do this. And anytime they do, it's super helpful to us to get these race videos out to the general swim sphere. But the fact that, we only could watch this meet on an Instagram live was a bummer. And that's no knock on anyone. I'm just saying we're seeing kind of this revolution, if you will, of unconventional meets and meets that are trying to draw large crowds and be a big deal within their communities. And the next way to get it out there to more masses is to be able to watch it. And so I think Tyler did a great job at Instagram living the whole meet so that you could watch it in some way. But it's so cool when you can just turn on your TV or switch on your laptop and watch a dual meet that's only an hour or two. Again, great thing about ISL, it was not a huge time commitment during the day. It was a 2-hour session, and then you would go on there with the rest of your day. And so my biggest takeaway is that I love this meet format, and I love that we were able to watch it, but live streaming is going to, I think, be a bigger and bigger part as these meets do get bigger, because you want to get these meets out there as much as possible.
Yeah, and I also want to add on to the live streaming thing is that I personally find color commentary as a great way to learn more about a sport. It's happened for me if I'm ever getting into a new sport, I'm always relying on the color commentary to give me context on how the sport works, the narratives. And I think having a live stream definitely helps with that. I know Tyler was doing good commentary on the Instagram live, but a live stream would probably be clearer. And this is not UVA's fault because there's obviously a contract with ACC Network and all that. But I think there are certain aspects of a live stream that are really important to maybe engaging a fan, even if it's someone who's a swim fan. I think they would still find it enjoyable if there was color commentary, even if they already knew stuff about swimming. And I also want to add, from a marketing wise, I wish they talked a little bit more about the score. I wish the score of the meet was hyped up a little more. I know UVA had a few live updates on the score, and again, I think they did all that they could to and went all out for this meet, and they did post the score at the end. But I wish we talked a little bit more about the score than we did, because we were obsessing so much over times when score is such an important part of this meet with the whole scoring format. And also, since the men's meet on the first day came down to the final relay, I wish there was a little bit more hype on that than on the actual times, because if we really want dual meets to be accessible, I think scores need to be made a bigger deal.
Absolutely. And this was another thing ISL did a great job of, but swim fans complained about. Swim fans are going to complain about everything regardless all the time. Is my experience in swimming so far. But yeah, it's like ISL was like, we don't care about times. We're doing points. And everyone was like, what the heck? And and it's like you have to have both, I think, to make it work. But I think they had it right. I think they just transitioned too quickly. I think if you want to popularize swimming, make it about scores, make it about racing, because that is what is, as you said, more accessible to everyone, because not everyone cares about the times. But I think an easy way, again, to build up this dual meet hype and format is to, like you said, just put the score up there. And I was commenting on the Instagram live, and I tried to give score updates from Meet Mobile a couple of times throughout the thing, but it's like that's only so much, and that's only the people who are like super closely following it. So I'm totally with you that a dual meet scoring format, especially in something like the super finals, like that can be super fun to follow, and like that can get the crowd really into it, especially with the momentum shifts. It's like you cheer for the racing and you cheer when your team wins, and then you cheer when you see the score update and you're like, oh, my team's winning, or like my team's coming back. That can be like a huge thing to get people involved.
Yeah, and it didn't help that Meet Mobile was slightly dysfunctional while the meet was going on. So
yeah. So I think I overall this meet was incredible, but they have areas of growth, which I think is a good thing because you can make it better. What did you think? I guess I know you didn't watch it, but what did you think of the super final format of having a normal heat of swimmers and then having a 1v1 battle royale?
I really like this whole super finals thing because I think, again, it appeals and is more fan friendly because you're focusing on two swimmers and they're just going head to head, and it's really simple scoring. Just one person gets 5 points, the other person gets nothing. And I really like it. And it's definitely a breath of fresh air from the whole 9, 4, 3, 2, 1 type of scoring that can get a little complicated and make swim meets a little bit more difficult to score. Do I think it's the end all be all in swimming? No, I think we're gonna have to. I don't think it would be great for a traditional dual meet format where you want to get everyone racing, and it would definitely be really time consuming. But for stuff like this, it's definitely cool to try it out. And I don't know, it's a new concept, and I liked it.
Yeah, it certainly makes me sorry, I'm mentioning the ISL a lot, but like this felt very similar to that, and it hasn't been around a while, but they brought a lot of new things in. It makes me appreciate jackpots. I never thought I would really say that, but like seeing Gretchen Walsh win 100 fly by 3 seconds, but then scoring the same as someone who wins a heat by 2/10. It's like I'm not saying we should incorporate jackpots into dual meets because that it does get complicated, and then the the crowd can kind of be like, well, how much do they need to beat them by? And then you need to have a line to be like, oh, this is the jackpot line. And that only really works for TV. However, it is cool when you're like, that person beat the other person by so much that they stole their points. Like that was a really cool dynamic to see in swimming because it's like, oh yeah, like some races are really close, but then some races like are so dominating, and it's fun to see you get rewarded for that domination. But I did like the one-on-one a lot, and primarily because they got to build them before the meet. You got to know going in who you were
Yeah,
going to
I
see
really
racing
like
head
that.
to head. And
I
it's
didn't
like,
expect that, but I liked
mhm.
it.
Yeah, it's like the NBA has this problem of like load management, and it's like if you're a kid who doesn't have a lot of money and your parents get you a ticket to a game and you're going to see LeBron James and then he's sitting out that night, you know, like that's really disappointing, right? Because you went expecting to see LeBron James, but if they bill it, if the week before they're like, hey, the Gretchen Walsh is racing Emma Sticklin in the 100 fly, like it is happening, then you're like, oh sweet, I'm gonna go and see this race. And like if we start doing that more in swimming, like which has never been done, I think, aside from maybe like NBC with Olympics, like that's
Yeah,
gonna
and
get people coming.
World Aquatics had did this whole like top three in an event before Worlds. They started doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really liked that aspect of it. So this leads us to Gretchen Walsh was obviously the standout swimmer of the meet. And we wrote an article. Was this the best dual meet performance of all time? Which I feel like needs some like parameters around what qualifies that, because she was in a normal practice suit. She was not in a technical racing suit. And so I'll let you answer it how you feel, how you want to make your parameters, Yin Yin. And then I'll make mine as well.
I think it's hard to define greatest swim of all time because obviously the tech suit thing, and with more and more teams suiting up for these dual meets, I think it's getting harder and harder to draw the line between what's a good swim because it was at a dual meet and what was a good swim just because they were suited. And I think definitely in terms of unsuited dual meets, Gretchen Walsh had the greatest dual meet performance of all time. And it's insane because okay, let me give you some context. Gretchen Walsh, 2022 NCAAs, 20.9553, 49 flat 100 back, 46.0 100 free. And this year at this dual meet, she goes 20.950 free, 49 1 100 back, 22.5 50 back. American record would have been an NCAA record 2 years ago, along with a 49 1 100 fly. She essentially matched her performance from 2022 NCAAs, where she was tapered and suited and had one of the best performances out of anyone in the NCAA that year. And yet she matched this performance 2 years later at a dual meet unsuited. Like, I find that insane to believe. I know this is not directly answering the question, but just given that context, what she did was insane. And I know a lot of people are rolling their eyes at short course yards right now, because it's an Olympic year and because the Americans didn't have the best world championships, Gretchen Walsh included. So I can understand the eye roll at her times right now, but still, it's insane. It's crazy. And I think that's something that we won't be able to fully appreciate until she leaves the NCAA.
Agreed. I think it's hard. This is like the Katie Ledecky effect, right? Like when Katie Ledecky swims a really good time now in season, you're just like, oh, that's cool. Because it's hard to contextualize her times against everyone else's because she's swam fast so many times and she's raised the bar so high. So we've seen Gretchen swim really fast in season before. So like this isn't necessarily like a new phenomena for her, but then also she has a teammate in Kate Douglas who also swims exceedingly fast in season and goes like, historically great times as like her predecessor, right? So it's like now we're just kind of expecting UVA women to swim really fast times in season. And it's like, oh, this is kind of what they do, And so in that light, it's like, I don't know if this is the great, it's like she swam really fast, sure, but like she didn't break NCAA records. It's like she swims fast in a unsuited all the time. Those are the thoughts in my head.
I do think this is different from her previous in season times because before when she went fast to the dual meet, like the context was this is fast for a dual meet. If she swam this at NCAAs, it would be disappointing. But at this meet, she was essentially matching her times from 2022 NCAAs. If she swam these times at NCAAs 2 years ago, she would have gotten the same results that she did then. And I know the NCAA has gotten faster since 2022, but that's just still crazy to me. And I think her dual meet performance from this week is definitely a tier above even her typical dual meet performances.
And I agree with you absolutely there. Yeah, I think that was more of a devil's advocate thing, but I do just 20.9 on its own. I was in the building when Abby Weitzel became the first woman to break 21 seconds in the 50-yard free. It was a 2019 Minnesota Invite. And it's like to think about the fact that only three other women besides Gretchen Walsh have broken 21 seconds. It's Kate Douglas, Maggie McNeil, Abby Weitzel did it one. Like Abby Weitzel had to like build up her entire career to like get to that point in yards, right? And then she did it like one time. And now like Kate Douglas and Gretchen Walsh combined have done it like, I don't know, 6 or 7 times at least. It's pretty, yeah, that is mind blowing to me. And then Maggie McNeil, the other person, has also only done it once, I'm pretty sure. So just like
I mean,
the
she's the record holder, so
but just
only
like
hit it
just
once is the fastest all time.
you're right. Yeah, but it's just the resume they're building is insane. So I have to remind myself of that. I certainly think this is the greatest female dual meet performance ever. I think the one other that stands out was Leon Marchand's last year when
Yeah.
he broke the NCAA record in the 400 IM. And I think that like the events they're swimming also kind of has to be taken into account, because like he went fast in 100 and a 50 breast at those meets, but he also broke the record in the 400 IM and then went crazy fast in the 200 breast and 200 IM. And he was wearing a suit, but like to me, that's a lot more impressive than going super fast in 50s and hundreds, just because it doesn't require, I think it's a lot easier in season to go faster in 50s and hundreds than it is 200s and 400s and 500s. So, it's hard to compare them. One was suited, one was unsuited. It was a historic performance regardless. Next up on our list, we saw another standout performance in a dual meet this weekend. Caroline Bricker, Stanford freshman, led the charge to a Stanford victory over Arkansas. The Stanford women were in technical racing suits, but Caroline she was the number 11 recruit in the high school class of 2023. She went best times in the 2 breast, 2 fly,
Caroline
and 4
Bricker, by the
IM.
way.
Caroline Bricker. Sorry. Thank
Yeah.
you. She was 207, 1, 2 breast, 154, 6, 2 fly, and 405, 5, 4 IM. We saw a lot of other really impressive swims from Stanford on the men and women's side. But this was definitely the standout and kind of the surprise. So I'm curious. I would like to know why Stanford decided to suit up for this meet and if they will be suiting up moving forward. But love to see this. But the question is, does this change your view of how the Stanford women will place at the 2024 NCAAs?
Oh my God, Lily Norman went 140, 154 as well. I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but I am. But in this new era of swimming fast in season and suiting up at these dual meets, I don't really trust that just because someone went this fast time in a dual meet, like that doesn't mean they're gonna replicate it at NCAAs. Because we saw a lot of this last year. Ryan White was faster at a September or October dual meet than she was at NCAAs, or SEC's Erica Sullivan set her season best at a dual meet. A lot of that kind of stuff was going on. So I really hope this leads to Caroline Bricker replicating these times at NCs, because I'm still a little skeptical about that. Not because of her as a swimmer, but just because this sort of stuff happens a lot. And I even have that concern with teams like Virginia that go super lights out at dual meets, but especially considering that a lot of Stanford swimmers added at NCs, I'm a little just I'm a little wary. But just individually, from a times perspective, I think Caroline Bricker times are good for Stanford. I don't know if this is going to necessarily bring them up by a considerable margin, because she's not really a sprinter. She does the 100 breast, but her main events are 200, 400. So she's not going to be a big boost on relays. But I do think this could turn Stanford from, for example, like a 10th place team to a 9th place team, but nothing too big, because Bricker coming into coming into her first NCAA season, she was probably a projected score in one event, the 200 breast. And I know this because I did the Stanford preview, but now, given that she's going 405, 400 IM, I think her best time before this was a 410, and 154,
It's a
205 when her
huge
best
drop.
time before was like a 157, 156. She's become a 3 event score now. She can easily get like 20 or 30 points, which I think could be enough to move Stanford up one place if it's close, but not super revolutionary in terms of the general landscape. But definitely really good for her as a freshman to be dropping these times.
No kidding. I mean, yeah. When you see a freshman going best times in season, even if they're in a suit, like I always feel like that's a really good sign, right? It's like they're obviously doing something right. They're having a good time in this new environment, seemingly. It's like it seems like something is going well in their swimming. It's a positive sign. I initially I was like, oh my God, this is like a game changer for Stanford. Of course, this moves them up. They could be like top 5. And then I actually started like looking at it and looking at our power rankings and looking at the teams that are ahead of them. I do feel like this could move them into maybe a 6, 7, 8 slot. And not again, yeah, not just Bricker's performances, but I do think that Greg has been doing this a long time and he knows what it takes to place high at NC2As. And even though their sprint talent isn't there on paper, I am confident in his abilities to kind of make it work and figure out a way to get a good 100 free or 100 of stroke out of some of these swimmers. And so I think, yeah, on paper, I think SwimSwam is also, and the commenters has also thought ill of Stanford a little more than they maybe deserve because of their recent exits / red shirts. But I think a 6, 7, 8 finish at NC2As is not out of the realm of possibilities for these Stanford women. I also said on 2 breakdowns ago that I think USC will place higher than them. And I don't see USC women finishing 6, 7, or 8, but I do see those 2 teams as being Stanford is not a team on the rise, but I do see those 2 teams being in that echelon, and USC as certainly being a team on the rise.
I think Stanford and USC are going to have the same questions headed in championship season because they're both teams that have historically had trouble replicating. They're not one of the most successful teams in terms of replicating season bests in the NCAAs, and both teams are going pretty fast in season right now. So I'm really just curious about if they're going to back this up in championship season. Both teams are sort of in that situation.
And I do want to, as a side note, like we are seeing a lot of fast in-season swimming now, and then that doesn't always transfer to the end of the season meet, whether that's conference, NC2As, whatever. And then people get upset and they're like, oh, they should have just done it the traditional way. Or for naysayers or commenters who are saying, oh, you should just swim slow in season and then like save it up for conference and NC2As. When that was happening, when that was being done by every team in the NC2A, this still happened where people didn't go best times or season bests at conference and NC2As. To me, I just want to reiterate the point that like fast swimming in season is good no matter what. And obviously you want to swim fast at NC2As, but like this is good for our sport regardless.
Yeah, and I think there are teams who go fast in season and go even faster at NCs. Virginia and Arizona State both did it last year. Mm-hmm. And it's just that it just works for some teams, and for some teams, other teams, they have to be better at it.
Agreed. And I think this is just risen the level of competition, right? Because it's crazy to me now that, for example, Bricker went 154.6 in the 200 fly in season, and like maybe 5 or 10 years ago, it's like that's an NC2A scoring time, I believe, but like now that's nowhere close.
It still is. Yeah.
Okay, well, like that's a really fast time, but you look at the top end or what it takes to make an A final or a top 8, and then that has gotten tremendously faster over the course of just the last few years, I think overall. And that's because I think in part we're seeing these really, really fast in-season swims, and then people will inevitably always go faster at the end of the season. Not everyone, but you will always still see faster swims at the end of the season. More bathtub swimming. Arizona State had their 25 battle royale. Ryan Held came out on top for the men. Olivia Smaliga beat Simone Manuel in the final for the women. Basically, it's just a bracket style 25-yard race that comes down to mano a mano 25-yard sprints. It's a really cool thing. They've done it for a few years now. Some people were suited, some people were not. I believe Ryan Held and Jack Dolan were not, and Olivia and Simone also were not suited. But my question to you, Yin, is if you could see any two swimmers race in a 25-yard freestyle, who would it be?
I know we've kind of seen this battle already, but I think it would be cool to see Gretchen Walsh versus Maggie McNeil in a 25 free because they're two of the best female underwater swimmers in the world, probably the two best female underwater swimmers in the world. And it would just be cool to them do a race that's almost completely underwater. I don't know. I think it would be funny to watch. Another race that I think would also be fun to watch, 25-yard, 25-meter battle royale. It's probably Caleb Dressel and Jordan Crooks because Jordan Crooks has phenomenal underwaters, but Dressel's start is the best in the world when he was at his peak. So peak Dressel, peak Crooks. Let's have a go at it.
That was going to be mine. Because they're both so twitchy. I went through the male side of sprinters and it's like, okay, who could really match up with Caleb in a 25 and who has the underwaters, the starts. And yeah, I think Jordan Crooks, the only two men to ever swim a 17-yard 50 freestyle. It's like, let's see them go head to head in a 25-yard. That would be great. I think both those matchups would be awesome. And we'd get to see a little international versus America in there as well with Canada and the Cayman Islands. So maybe one day, who's to say?
Yeah. Sorry for stealing your thunder, Colin, by saying two.
That's fine. It's fine. I'm not mad about it. We also had some international meets this weekend. We saw French short course nationals, which was a qualifier for the short course European Championships later in the year. And then we saw the Marek Petrusewicz, I don't know if I'm saying that right, memorial meet, which was a very cool 2-day formatted meet. Yin, I'll start with you. What was your biggest takeaways just from either of these meets, from both of these meets? What did you see that you liked?
This is the same thing I have to say for short course yards right now. In an Olympic year, I think there's a little less weight being put on short course meters. I know there's Euros coming up end of the year, but this is definitely just the way to get good racing in. And I'm not taking these results too seriously, but I do think it's notable that Maxime Gousset beat Florent Menadou in the 50 free because to me, Florent has always been a really good short course swimmer, probably better in short course than he is at long course. And for Gousset to beat Menadou in a 50 when 50s are kind of Menadou's thing, I thought that was surprising, and I think it speaks to Gousset's consistency, his rise in swimming, and I think he's bound to have a great home Olympics. I don't think this necessarily says anything like, oh, Menadou's washed, like some of the comments are implying. He is in the back of his career, but I think it speaks more to how good Gousset is becoming than how not, quote unquote, not good Menadou is. And I also saw that Dylan Carter won a lot of skins rounds in the Marek Memorial, the polished meet, I think. And I think that also speaks to how consistent he is as a swimmer in short course, especially. He was so good at the World Cup last year, and he's just showing that again right now.
Yeah, the Marek Petrusewicz Memorial meet was a 2-day meet. It was a lot of short events, and both days concluded with 25 skins. So very similar to the 25-yard World Championships held at ASU. For those of you who don't like bathtub swimming, we got it all for you today. I really just loved this meet format. It seemed like they were just hopping on the fun meet format that we've seen a lot of in this NC2A dual meet season. And I enjoyed watching all these really fast swimmers racing 25 meters over and over and over again. I liked that skins format a lot from that meet. And again, like you said, great racing opportunities. It's fun to see meets that are just like, hey, let's just come here, swim some short events, have some fun. I think the sessions were a little long, but overall, nice meet to watch. From French short course, I really liked Anastasia Krupchnikova just downing a 19-year-old French record by 9 seconds. And it is the short course meters women's mile, which probably doesn't get swum a ton, but it's cool to see her as a recent French citizen and transplant having a lot of success leading into the Paris Olympics. I always like seeing a home Olympian do well at a home Olympics. And so I think it'd be really cool if she could get on the podium. To your point, I would really love to see Florent get on the podium at his home Olympics too. But Krupchnikova looked really solid at this meet. And so to me, that's a great sign that she's doing just fine in France. That is our news for the week. So let's finish off with a few quick sink or swims. First up today on Sink or Swim, world record holder Kaylee McKeown has set her sights on becoming the first woman to ever go under 57 in the 100-meter backstroke. I'm not going to ask you to sink or swim if she will be, because I think that's a pretty easy one to get. It's not a guarantee for her, but it seems all signs are pointing to it. Do you think she will go under 57 for the first time at the Paris Olympics?
I find this question really funny because after last week with our whole Reagan Kaylee debate, everyone got mad at you and Braden for, I guess, having more faith in Reagan than the rest of the commenters. I've been labeled as the Kaylee McKeown defender, and I am pretty high on McKeown, but I'm gonna sink her going under 57 in Paris because she's just not that kind of swimmer. She goes fast all the time, and I do think she does go fast when it matters, but historically she hasn't set her best times at the big international meet of the year, which is fine because she wins anyway, but I could see her not going a best time in Paris and still winning. I think that's what's going to happen. But I think when she goes 56, it's probably going to be at a smaller meet because that's just how she operates. And I mean, it's working for her. She's still consistent. She's still getting her hand on the wall first, but I just don't think she's going to be going under 57 at the big meet of the year.
I am going to predict that Kaylee McKeown goes 56, the 100-meter backstroke for the first time at Australian Olympic trials. So I am sinking this because I think she'll go really fast at trials. I'm not saying she won't go really fast at the Olympics, so don't throw any shade my way. I'm just saying at this moment that she will go really fast at the Australian Olympic trials, which are in Australia. So I am sinking her going 57, under 57 for the first time at the Olympic Games. That's all I'm going to say about that.
You've dealt with too much.
I'm being very specific right now, and that is very purposeful on this topic. Next up, the 2024 Chinese Olympic trials have been moved to April, dimming Sun Yang's shot at Paris. So essentially, Sun Yang's doping ban ends in May. And so this means that he will not be eligible to compete at the Chinese Olympic trials. So this is purely just speculation. But do you think that Sun Yang will compete at the 2024 Olympic Games, having not competed at the 2024 Chinese Olympic trials?
I'm gonna think it because he's what is he gonna be? 32?
Something like that. Early
He's gonna
30s.
be in
Yeah.
he's gonna be in his 30s. He hasn't competed in it's gonna be over 4 years by that point, and he wasn't his times right now probably wouldn't contend for medals or gold the way that they used to. And I don't know. I think China's in a really good spot right now with the swimmers they have, both performance wise and PR wise. Um, so and if Sun Yang were to make the Olympics, it would be based on discretionary selection. And I don't see how they would select a swimmer who's probably not gonna be in super good form and also doesn't have the greatest public reputation on this team that's on a really good upward trajectory right now is poised to have a good Olympics even without Sun Yang. And I just don't see why they would risk it. And if Sun the only way I see them um picking him for the Olympics is if he goes like insane times in his comeback, which I don't think will happen. So yeah, I'm gonna say it.
So what do you think it would take? But give me a time for a 200 freestyle for them to select him for a relay.
144.
That's it. That seems feasible. I don't know. He says he's training every day.
I'm taking his training with a grain of salt. Like maybe he is training, but when was the last time he's broken 145? Oh, 2019. But still,
right, 4 years ago.
a lot has happened.
A
lot
been a
has
while.
happened since 2019.
We've went through a global pandemic, among other things. Yeah, I think China's in a great spot right now, and that's a great point because I wouldn't want to mess with the team chemistry either. But I am curious as to what China thinks of Sun Yang and if he is in good standing with the national team as well as just the country in general. Like if he is more viewed as like a martyr and a hero, or as like, no, he was doping. We don't really want him. Or, I don't know how China views him.
I think, yeah, when he was at his peak, he was probably like the most popular athlete in China.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the way he's viewed there is like the way LeBron is viewed in the US. And I think that was back when during his peak. Right now, there's like athletes that are more famous than him, are more well liked than him, but in his peak, he definitely had that status.
Gotcha. So yeah, that it's like I personally don't really want to see him in the Olympics, but I just have a feeling he's going to be there. And if I think if he swam on a relay, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. I mean, rules wise, it might be morally ambiguous, but like I don't think it would cause a kerfluffle. But if he returns to like really good form, also here's the thing: if he gets selected to swim individually and then swims slow, I don't think anyone's really gonna care. But if he's like making finals, then I think people will care.
Oh, for sure. Especially given the circumstances of his situation, he hasn't formally competed in 4 years. Like all we have are his words saying that he's practiced.
Yeah, I would. I'm going to swim it. I just have a feeling in the back of my head that like he's going to get selected for that team, and it's going to cause this whole thing. So I'm swimming it just on intuition, but also I just really want to see his comeback meet. Like I want those results. I really hope that happens, regardless if he gets to go to the Olympics or not. Because I just want to see like if he's actually been swimming or if he just like goes a 155 in the 200 free. It's like, yeah, no, JK, I'm out.
We're gonna write an article about Molly O'Callaghan out splitting Sun Yang in the 200 free.
Exactly. I want that. Yeah. So I just want to see where he's at. So
Okay.
we shall see how that goes. Last up on Sink or Swim, another topic that we have even less information about is Matt Klotz, deaf world record holder, LSU alum. He is on Big Brother. He's in the final four of Big Brother season 25. And the finale will occur Thursday, November 9th. After 100 days in the Big Brother house, cash prizes are on the line. That includes $750,000 as the grand prize for the winner, $75,000 for the runner-up, and $50,000 for America's favorite player, which is determined by an online vote. As a side note, Big Brother can be streamed live on Paramount Plus and CBS if you want to watch our swimmer brethren on the finale. All right,
not you promoting Big Brother on the swim.
You know what? It's like it's a pretty cool. It's kind of cool when a swimmer gets this kind of mainstream hype. I just want to give the people information, you know.
That's
okay.
Solid.
All right, Union, sink or swim. Matt Klotz wins one of those cash prizes: winner, runner-up, or fan favorite.
Okay, I know nothing about Big Brother. I know people who do know and follow Big Brother. So yeah, I'm gonna swim it because he's a swimmer, and yay, swimmer representation. Woo woo.
I'm swimming the swimmer.
Okay,
go ahead.
I think the one takeaway I do have from Big Brother is how rabid TV show / movie fans can be. Like they are in our comments and they're getting heated.
Yeah, you think SwimSwam commenters are bad? Just go to mainstream. I'm gonna swim it too. I don't know a whole lot about Big Brother, but it seems like he has a pretty good shot. The Rob has a podcast, Big Brother 25 eviction recap pot. Said that he is one of three who has a good shot at winning the whole thing. So let's swim Matt Klotz. I hope he wins some prize because that'd be really cool as a swimmer. I think we're going to try to get him on our podcast. And so it'd be even better for that if he wins some sort of prize. But if you are a Big Brother fan or know the situation, please feel free to leave a comment below and tell us what you think and if you think Matt will win a cash prize. But that's our show for today. Thank you for tuning in.
Fans are probably like annoyed at us for like completely butchering this show because we're locals here. We're not Big Brother fans.
We're not Big Brother people. But
we're not Big Brother people.
just be kind and educate us. Just let us know.
It's funny. Sorry, I keep on interrupting you.
You're good.
It's funny how I was talking about how Big Brother and like TV show fans are kind of crazy when I'm literally like after I get off this podcast, I'm probably going to work on my midterm paper. That's literally me voicing my opinions on a movie character. So that's funny.
We love to hear that.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, this is the SwimSwam breakdown. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.